Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Imagine your monitoring system is suddenly alerting saying API error rate increased. Your users are reporting failures saying requests are returning HTTP 500. Whenever engineers get into API failures, the first instinct is often maybe CPU is overloaded, but experienced engineers know something important. The production systems rarely fail in obvious ways, so instead of guessing, we investigate the system step by step. And in this video, we will try to simulate similar incident in our environment and we will try to debug through it. By the end of this video, you will be in a position to debug any API 500 errors in your production environment efficiently in a step-by-step approach. So without any further delay, let's jump into the topic. Whenever you get into API 500 errors, the reason to the problem may be multiple scenarios. Either your underlying systems can be failing, which could have resulted to your API to return 500. Maybe there might be some application related changes which has occurred recently, which also could have broken your API. Or there may be some certificate related issue which could have resulted to the 500 issues. Or finally, there might be some system level issue which has resulted your API 500 issues. So before jumping into any observation or any assumption, we try to investigate any dependent systems has actually failed or not. So how we do it? We normally check all the alerts, not necessarily to the API, but whatever the dependent systems are there, we try to check all the alerts. Before that, very important thing is that we don't directly jump into resolving the API failures, but before we have to get the system level understanding or the architecture level understanding, which are the components which are making your API platform to run and which are the single point of failure. So during an incident time, we try to check those systems first before we get into API failures, right? So how we can check it? Either we can check, as I mentioned, via your alert, or you can check from your WebEx, Slack, or any communication channel which you might be having during your internal teams. There might be some already some discussions which might be happening where you can track it, or else you can look for some of the emergency maintenance like the databases, your networking infrastructure, or your whole data center, or might be any other systems which is dependent on your API or API is dependent on those systems. If there is nothing, then only you jump into the system, right? So before also getting into the system, the first thing what we check is we don't trust on everything. We first try to reproduce the scenario by either running your application in your browser, confirm that there is actually an internal server error is coming. If it is coming, then only we jump into the server. Once you jump into the server like this, the first thing what you do is you try to hit your API from your local, which is nothing but your server environment. How you do? You can simply run a curl command and you can check for your API what it is returning. So for my API, which I have hosted, currently it is throwing me a 500 internal server error, which is exactly the same issue which your user has reported. Then I can assume that something is at the system level which is breaking at the moment, right? So for an experienced engineer, what we do is instead of running the curl command continuously, what we do is we try to run a while loop so that I continuously hit to the API endpoint and I get the response code within my terminal, right? Why we do this way? Because sometimes what happens, there might be some network congestion or some temporary failures which could have resulted the issue. So that is why we just run a loop so that we continuously get the responses, and in between our troubleshooting we could come back to this terminal and we can check if it would have returned to the 200 or not. If not, then we continue with our troubleshooting. Now what we do, we get into another terminal. First thing first, what we check is we try to check the overall process usage. As I mentioned, most of the time engineers think that API 500 means it is directly connected to the CPU overhead, so we try to check that. So if I hit enter, here I see so many information. First thing first, what I see, the top consumer of my CPU, which I can see is this particular application, and it is consuming almost 3% of the CPU, which is okay. I don't have to worry about it much. And this is not the ideal signal which we look for. Ideal signal we look for is this particular tab, which is, or table, which is there, right? So here what we are seeing the US or the user CPU usage is around 3.5. The system or the kernel CPU is around 3.4, and the ideal CPU is around 0, which is okay, and WA, which is 93.5. Now this is something interesting, right? So what we are understanding is the CPU is mostly ideal, but we see the IO wait time. So this WA or IO wait is something 94.5%, which is not normal. And I can assume that something is happening at the IO wait, which means CPU is not busy, but doing work and it is waiting for the disk operation, for which CPU is probably not the bottleneck, right? So we can assume that CPU is not the bottleneck. We are getting some signal that IO is the issue, which is around more than 90%, and something is happening in that particular area. IO is nothing but input and output operations at the disk level. Before jumping into it, we try to see some other scenarios as well. Second thing, what we see is we try to see the disk usage. Sometimes what happens, your disk gets full for the overwhelming logs which is coming, for which your application may stop working. So we try to check that. We just do df-h, and I do quickly check all the mounted file systems, and I can see my root volume, which is the highest consumer, which is around 70%, which is okay. Not good, not bad, but for sure the disk is not full, and this is not the cause of the problem. Right now I get into the third step. What is the third step? We try to check the load average. Right? Why load average? Most of the time people assume that if the load average is not ideal, it is directly proportional to the CPU usage, which is not true. Right? Why? Because your load average can depend on multiple scenarios, maybe running on your CPU, or waiting for the CPU, or waiting for the disk IO, or waiting for the networking inputs. Multiple scenarios, like the overall load can vary or change for multiple scenarios. So we need to check that as well. Before jumping into some other component, we try to check what is the overall load looks like. So what I do uptime, hit enter, and here what I can see is the load average for last 5, 10, 15 minutes is nearly 8, which means most of 8 minimum jobs which are staying at the wait time. If I want to check on the go, I can run htop command also, and I can see in real time what is exactly is happening at the load level. Here I can see the load average is kind of fluctuating, because sometimes it is going up to 24%, sometimes it is going down to 5%, and vice versa, right? And it is not, for sure it is not stable, right? So something is hindering your uptime, and this is something not good. Now we have checked that in the CPU level, we have checked that something is wrong at the IO level, and your load average is fluctuating, disk is perfectly fine. Now what we do is we try to monitor the system performance every second, right? And we try to see the process queue, how exactly it is behaving. How we check? We can run a command vmstat followed by 1, which is 1 second, and I see what is the process tree or your overall process queue looks like. So here the two tables are very much important. What I can see is there are running processes 3, maximum 3, but the block processes are almost around 7 or 9 maximum is coming. What exactly it is showing? So it is exactly showing that your block processes usually waiting for your disk IO, right? And if you see your multiple block processes, it can give you a strong signal that something is happening at the storage layer for sure. Now we go a little bit deeper into it. What I do, I now check for the actual IO statistics or input or output statistics, how exactly your disk is behaving. How I can check? I can check IO stat -x, and I check every 1 second what is happening, right? So it will tell me in the real time, it will tell me everything, multiple things with regards to IO. But what I need to care about is the utilization which is happening, and what is the await time of the disk. Await time is around 7.33, but the utilization is almost 84%, and it is keep on fluctuating, 93% and 97%, 96%, which is keep on fluctuating, right? I can now very sure that IO is a problem, and there is something happening at the input and output level which is causing the 500 errors. Now I exactly identify the source. How I can identify the source? I can use iotop command, which will normally tell me which process is exactly consuming the highest IO operation. So if I see it in ascending order, I can see that these are the processes which are doing the highest disk writes, almost 1400 KB per second, which is exactly causing the spike in my IO, right? So this process is nothing but my API itself, and I know it because I have created it, and this might be the most of your case as well, because sometimes what happens, if only your API service is running in your application, the API itself can spike off your IO. It can happen for multiple reasons. First reason can be accessing logging. Your API is writing too much logs, or somebody have enabled the debug logging, which is unnecessarily doing lot of write operations, or maybe some application is writing some temporary files, which is also causing more write operations, or might be some file uploads which are happening, or might be some bad job which is happening, which is expected or unexpected. You have to take the call, or some of the batch job which is running, right? So these are some scenarios which could create your spike in your IO, which is a common scenario most of the time. And if it is a case, then now you have to involve your application team or your engineering team for doing the further investigation or helping you out for resolving the same. If you know, if it is expected, then you can take the call either by killing that particular process or do whatever you want to do. For my case, what I will do is I will just kill that write operation, and I will jump to my terminal where I'm hitting to the API, and here I can see the application has now started returning my 200, right? So this is how a scenario which you can come across during your production environment. But the important thing is that you follow a step-by-step process. First, you look for the signal, then you jump for the conclusion. You don't directly go into the conclusion. How you can look for signal? By approaching in a step-by-step manner. How? What I did, I first looked for the signal in my layer one, which is my user layer in the Chrome. I got into the system, I look for the process, then I look for the overall disk operations. I look for the track for the IO operations from that, right? Now, what in my scenario, what it is happening? Requests are arriving. Your application is trying to write the logs to write or read the files. Then your disk is becoming slow. Then your workers are blocking wait time for your IO, and your requests are going into the queue or the process queue. Your timeout is happening, and your API is returning to the HTTP 500. This is a brain map which I have created, or I could create during an incident scenario for the getting into the deeper into it. You can also do the same if you know the system or understand the system, or use the command appropriately from your signal to understand the behavior or the problem which is occurring during your incident, right? So that is how you troubleshoot. When we debug production systems, we don't rely on single metric. We try to see variety of metrics from multiple sources, understanding how this signal are connecting with each other, and how exactly you can utilize your tool in your production environment in a pro way. In short, API failures often appear very simple on the surface, but the real cause is usually hidden somewhere deeper in the system. And the ability to systematically investigate those layers is one of the most valuable skills of an engineer, which either he can possess or he can develop over the period of time, if and only he understands the system very well and he utilizes the tool efficiently. With that, we end today's video. That's it for today. Hope you liked it. If so, then please like, share, and subscribe. Put your thoughts in the comment box below, and let us know your thoughts, what topics you would like us to cover in our upcoming videos. Thanks for watching. See you next video.